We're rolling. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this super special edition of Sneak Live. So awesome to have you here. I'm joined today. Well, you probably noticed it's a little bit different to normal because I'm in VR. Now, there's a few complexities to that, so hopefully everything is working fine. Everything looks good. If you see me twisting my head in a weird direction, it's because I'm checking 3 other things. If you want to know how this is working, so we're currently live streaming from AltSpace VR, which is a really cool platform, has some really great meetups and stuff in there, virtual events from around the world. The way that we're trying, and this is completely new, but what we're trying to do today, or what I'm doing today, I've got a second headset that I'm running through OBS via Oculus sharing. It's an Oculus Quest. And yeah, and I'm running through Oculus Share inside a browser, inside OBS, capturing the audio and then streaming it all through StreamYard. If you're joining us on YouTube and Twitch, please don't think that everything is there's something wrong and we've suddenly gone all cartoony. This is totally intentional. And if you have got an Oculus headset, feel free to jump in and join the event. We're a featured event on the AltSpace dashboard today, which is really cool. So before we get underway, I am presenting from Australia, and I'd like to take a moment to recognize the traditional owners on the lands in which we meet today, or which I'm presenting from today as well, including the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional owners on the lands here in Narromine in country New South Wales. So anyway, that's all I've got for intro things at the moment. So I've intro my amazing speaker today. So Liam Hampton, who is one of the senior developer advocates at Microsoft from the UK. I think that's the great thing about VR is you can connect really easily all over the world and kind of be in the same group. So anyway, welcome, Liam.
Hello everybody, and thank you for having me on here today, Steve. It is a fantastic kind of new way to be meeting people. I appreciate you calling me a senior advocate as well. I'm not quite a senior. One day, though. One day we'll get there.
See, we've worked together previously at IBM, and I've just spent so much time with you. I was just like, yeah,
See, I was there. I was a lead there. But no, it's a fantastic new way to meet people, and it's so great to be on here. So hello to everybody on the stream, if you're joining live. And to those in the event, it's nice to see you in the audience. This is kind of like the best kind of hybrid we can get at the moment, isn't it? So what is it? Kind of in-person event, not quite in person, but it's kind of nice to see eyes twitching around. Because I think AltSpace has got this really cool feature where if you're kind of looking towards somebody, you can kind of see their eyes kind of sort of spin onto you. It's quite good. And yeah, I'm in an Oculus too.
I just realized, yeah, it is a little odd doing a presentation inside VR. Although I've been in VR so many times, this is the first event I've ever been to that I can actually fly in, because you can fly in space. So there you go.
Yes, you can. It's a phenomenal kind of place we're in. And with that being said, I must also apologize if I do mash my slides a little bit. It is because I've got one hand on a microphone, one hand on my other sort of controller waving, and one on the keyboard, which I just can't see. So it's all about touch typing today.
This is going to be fun.
I know.
So let's get started. I guess my first question is more around how you got started in development. Before we, I know we've got a couple of slides, and you've got so many fun projects to talk about. But how did you get started as a dev, and what was your drive? What was drivers to the passion?
See, that's a really good question. Thank you. So when I was younger, when I was sort of like 10, 11 years old, so I grew up. So I'm 26, right? So I grew up in the whole boom of technology through the zeros, whatever you want to call them, noughties, all the way up through then the tens. And I've seen the whole transition from like dial-up, going from that horrible, lovely tone, all the way through to Wi-Fi speeding up, and the boom of technology. And it was all in the mix of that I was sort of learning how to code. I was sort of picking computers apart, playing with them. And I always knew I wanted to do something with computers when I grew up, but I never wanted to do an office job, which is so weird because that's kind of what I do now.
Yeah.
but it was learning how to program small games. So you may have heard about Elon Musk, and he was creating games when he was younger on the Nintendo or Atari or whatever he was playing with. It was very much like that, and just learning how to code at a young age. From that, I kind of went through school thinking, cool, I'm going to do like a really cool A level where I get to code and learn about computers. And I totally sucked at it. I actually got my worst grade at school at like a higher level in computer science. But that didn't stop me. I went straight into university and did networking. So like Cisco, CCNA, network protocols, all that kind of thing. Again, I was rubbish at it. I was so terrible. I managed to get a 2-1, which is like an average grade, I guess. But from there, I did a placement year as a software engineer. I kind of blagged it in my interview. It was quite funny. I made like a proper drag and drop Wix or WordPress website and was like, hey, I can make some things. Please hire me.
I can code.
And they did. So it wasn't even proper code at that point. Got a software job and really loved it. And that was where I kind of fell into that. It just suddenly clicked in my head. And I went into IBM as a graduate developer. And that was where I was able to sort of really pick up code and really learn and experiment and have good fun with sort of what I was making. And I was quite lucky at the time to have quite a bit of freedom to be able to create these projects and really sort of tinker and go in the direction that I wanted to go in. And that was kind of where it really all began for me as a career. And I've actually can go on forever about that because there were so many cool projects that I did at IBM and outside. But that's kind of how I really got into it. That's the story behind me.
Nice. And I think we've all been there. I remember my early days as a developer, and I'm going to mention a word that some people may recognize: Dreamweaver. Many times tinkering with Dreamweaver and sort of coming to that realization, like once you've built a site, you look through the source code and you kind of realize that you can kind of build it a whole bunch better than what it just did.
Yeah.
It's those early starts. How did you get into Go? Like what led you into the Go universe?
And that is a really good segue. So I left where I was going before I got into that, because it was actually at IBM that I got into Go. I was given sort of the freedom. I was working on this project, which was an internal project at IBM at the time. And throughout my time working as a software engineer, we actually open sourced, and it went through, I don't know if you're familiar with open sourcing a project, you kind of go through a number of iterations where it will sort of, you might change name a few times when you're going through that incubator period and sort of transitioning from internal to external. And there was like all these funny code names and whatnot. And we soon realized where we were going around the project. I'm actually going to be talking about this in the Eclipse code, but that was never what it was when I joined. But through that, it essentially ended up being a VS Code plugin. And it was all around containers and orchestration and sort of hybrid cloud deployment of your projects. And it was at that point that we recognized we needed another piece of the puzzle. So my team lead at the time came to me and said, hey, Liam, how would you fancy sort of picking something up or creating a CLI binary for us? And I straight away jumped on that. I love getting into new things. I get quite bored quite quickly, which is why I really enjoy advocacy, because it's such a variety. But as an engineer, I was absolutely psyched. I just wanted to go for it. So I went home and I Googled, how do you make a CLI? And that was literally what led me to Go. And it was all around sort of the fundamentals of the language, why it's so good for a CLI. I mean, that's quite in depth, and I could probably talk forever on that one. But that was kind of my segue into it. And they gave me the freedom to sort of spend the next couple of weeks just looking and researching, looking into Go, sort of making a prototype. And then they finally said, you got 3 weeks. I need something out by the end of 3 weeks, and then we go with it. So I was really under pressure to learn a new language. I think I dropped my microphone. So to learn a new language, and that's going to be a thing here, I think, and sort of run with it. And yeah, it was kind of like under the pressure. I didn't have time to learn C or Python or anything like that. It wasn't really of interest to me. Go was kind of the one that sort of backing behind it as well. It's not just the sort of corporate backing or the open source about it. It was very much the very will teach you really, really nicely about it. You can have great in-depth conversations because it's still quite juvenile language compared to most. That's kind of how I got into it.
Nice. Just for those that might be tuning in at the moment on Twitch and YouTube, we're currently in alt space, just a little bit different. We thought we'd give the whole metaverse thing a try. We are on alt space. If you've got a VR headset, please jump in, check out the events tab, and you'll see us as a featured event. We're currently with developer Steve and Liam Hampton from the UK. Talking about Golang and just how Liam got started as a dev and got started into the wonderful.
Keeping things alive. When I moved to my new flat, I was given a plant, like a house plant. It's called a money tree, and I was determined to not kill it. So I've had many, many, many plants come to my house and have just sat on a windowsill and they have died. And I think watering them and giving them a bit of sunlight is all they need. It turns out you need to actually take care of these things. So I decided to build something with Arduino, and I bought a bunch of Arduinos thinking this is going to be cool. I'm going to make some really good projects with them. They arrived and I had no idea how to write C++. So kind of had to make another segue there into TinyGo. So using my existing skills as a Go developer into creating small projects around my house. It's sort of a language that I'm familiar with and a way that I'm capable of creating projects. And that was probably one of my fun ones. Other ones or other fun things that I'm working on at the moment is actually a letterbox sensor. So for context, I live in a block of flats, and if I want to check the post, then I have to run all the way down to the bottom of the thing, or like the bottom of the stairs into the foyer to check my letterbox. I'll tell you, it's pretty tedious when you're doing that 2 or 3 times a day when you're waiting for some post. So I'm actually creating a letterbox sensor which will take some light, or like using a photo resistor, which will then sort of detect if there's any light from the open letterbox from said postman or woman, and it will then notify me. So connecting that through IoT hub or broker in the cloud to then send me a text message or an email to say, hey, Liam, you got some post, go and check your letterbox. It just makes my life a little bit easier. So I'm in the middle of creating that one. There's a whole bunch of automation, your standard LED lights with RGB strips, sort of working around those sort of things, room automation, like tying up to Alexa, all those kind of things going to be good fun.
So yeah, I mean, IoT always a geeky, passionate thing that I always can think of with. Actually, I might need to hopefully you open source to your letterbox thing because I might need to use it. I've got to build a new one at some point.
Yes, 100%. All my code, I always make my code free. I don't like to hide it away. I always try and stick it up when it's ready and when I'm comfortable with it being open source. I always make sure that is something I do because this community is not just about taking, it's all about giving as well. And as a developer, you always Google something, and if you always find it on Stack Overflow, you might find it in forums somewhere or in YouTube videos. And it's thanks to those people that we're able to create these kind of projects in the first place. So I always make sure that I'm giving back and sort of making sure my code and sort of posts, etc., are available.
No, that's amazing. And I mean, we're all products of open source to some degree, and that's pretty much where we do all our learning. So always remember, contribute back where you can. I know you all do. I just always like to remind everyone. Actually, speaking of, I'm going to slightly segue here. We do have, let me see if I can put the link in there. I'm just going to drop the link on, but something we've just announced recently. Oh, I can. I was able to reach the screen in the real world. But for those joining the live stream, I've just put the link in for the Big Sneaks Big Fix that's coming up on the 25th of February. Well, it's open now, but we've got a 24-hour live stream on the 25th of February, just before and the lead up to ending. But you can contribute to open source, be able to help communities fix some vulnerabilities and get some really cool swag as well. So check that out on the live stream. And folks in VR, I can't post the link in here, but there's some images around the place that you can check out, or check out the website as well. Oh, I was surprised I was able to reach that. That was like a whole other headset away and another laptop.
Yeah, that's a good effort. That's a good effort.
What's some communities that you can that you've that you want to do a shout out to, like some open source? Speaking of open source,
Yeah.
is there any communities or open source projects that you're interacting with, using, that you want to do a shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I would just love to shout out to the whole Go community because it is such a vibrant one. So I actually did a small talk at GopherCon in December, which was like one of the lightning talks throughout the conference. And the amount of support you get in the Go community is phenomenal. It doesn't matter sort of how big a project you're creating, how small it is. I actually presented on some of my TinyGo IoT projects and just sort of let them know what I was playing with and how you get into it. And straight off the bat of that, I was into a really cool Slack group. I was invited in. TinyGo is definitely a community which I'm sort of keen to back with a lot more in 2022.